Hello and welcome to episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Monday, January 2nd. Hope everybody's having a day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. Hope everybody had a good weekend. We are coming off of a packed sports weekend. College football on Saturday, NFL yesterday, hockey and basketball obviously mixed in as well. College basketball also in there, so it was an exciting weekend. If you are a Giants fan today, you are waking up fired up. You are excited. You have clinched a playoff berth for the first time since 2016. And now you get the Eagles next weekend, and then after that, you get a playoff game against it. Right now, as of right now, it's the Vikings, but obviously, how next week, depending on how next week's games play out, it could definitely change depending on who the Giants will play first round. And if it is the Vikings, the Giants almost beat the Vikings last week on Christmas Eve, or whatever, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, on Christmas Eve. So you like to, a week ago on Christmas Eve, Saturday, they almost beat the Vikings, lost on the game-winning field goal by Greg Joseph. So you like your chances there. And if you're a Jets fan today, you're waking up frustrated. You're waking up same old Jets. It is another loss. It is 5 straight. The Jets are now eliminated. And unlike the Giants snapping their playoff streak, they get the, obviously clinch yesterday. The New York Jets extend their streak of not making the playoffs now to 12 years in a row. And that is currently the longest drought in the NFL. And if the Sacramento Kings, obviously in the NBA, if they make the playoffs this year, it will be the longest playoff drought in sports. Will belong to the New York Jets right now with 12 straight years not making the postseason. So it was pathetic. It was embarrassing. You get a second opportunity, and the Jets go out there and straight up embarrass themselves on the road in Seattle. We'll get into it all today. We'll also get to the rest of the NFL. A lot of good games on yesterday. Steelers stay alive. Niners just escaped the Raiders led by Jared Stidham. Got a very big game tonight in terms of AFC and playoff, picture there between the Bills and the Bengals in Cincinnati. That should be a great game tonight. We'll also, recap some of the college football games. TCU over Michigan and Georgia over Ohio State. Just phenomenal college football playoff games. 2 great games. The Michigan-TCU game came down to the final couple seconds. Ohio State misses the field goal late. Georgia wins. Stetson Bennett leads the big comeback. 2 excellent games, and now you get ready for TCU. Georgia will be on Monday next week, a week from today, TCU Georgia for the college football final and to win it all. So a lot to get to today. With all that being said, this is the Bubbs on Sports podcast, and let's get right into it. So we'll also get the fantasy football here as well. Got a lot to get to here. Just quickly, before we get to the Jets and the Giants, this week had another successful week for my NFL game picks. I went 9-6 this week overall, and if I correctly pick tonight's game between the Bills and the Bengals, and I'll get you my pick in a little bit here, I will have 10 wins, which will be 5 out of the last 6 weeks with double-digit wins. So late in the year here, racking up some wins, racking up some correct picks here after yesterday's results. So now my overall in the year from NFL game picks is 158-97. And again, tonight, an opportunity to get my 10th win or 10th correct pick of the week and have another week of double digits. And then next week will be it. Week 18, that will be it. And then it's wild card weekend, divisional round, championship round, and obviously the Super Bowl here in about a month in February. So a lot to get to here. We're going to start with the Jets. We'll get to the Giants. We'll get to their playoff, clinching win yesterday. We'll get to their, Daniel Jones. We'll get to Dable. We'll get to the Giants here in a little bit. But I got to start off today with the New York Jets, as we usually do, obviously, on this show. But the Jets yesterday go into, Seattle. They get a second opportunity. Let's just give you a timeline here. So the New York Jets, right, they lose against Jacksonville last Thursday, a couple days before Christmas. All of us Jet fans are disappointed. You're upset. The season feels over. And then over last weekend, you get a lot of things that go your way. Bengals beat the Patriots. You get Steelers over the Raiders. And the big one was the Dolphins over the Packers. And then you get a second opportunity to make the playoffs where the Jets had to win out and they needed New England to lose one of the next 2 games. Now, New England won yesterday against Miami. So next week, New England will play against Buffalo. And even if New England wins that, no matter what the Jets do, no matter what the Jets would have done these final 2 games, it doesn't matter. But most likely, New England's probably going to lose on the road to Buffalo. And the Jets obviously needed to win out. They needed to win yesterday, and they needed to beat Miami to get into the postseason. That's not crazy. That's not a crazy path. You can definitely do that. You're definitely capable of it. But the New York Jets yesterday, with a second opportunity, 10 days to prepare. They played Thursday. They had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. Then they got back to work, obviously, last week. They had an opportunity, to watch the Seahawks against the Chiefs on Christmas Eve last week to scout them and kind of get a feeling of what they do and the way they run things and all that stuff. And then they come out flat yesterday, lose 23-6, fall to 7-9 on the season, and they are now eliminated from the postseason for the 12th straight year. Pathetic performance. And we were sick. Remember, we were 6-3. 6-3 going into the bye week. And we had 8 games after the bye week. Now, obviously, we're 7 games in. We have 1 more game left. 8 games. We were all saying, go 4-4. Play 500 football the rest of the way, and you'll get into the playoffs. If the Jets lose next week, so much about 5-3, 4-4. The Jets would be 1-7 since the bye week. To add on to that, 5 straight losses, and they've played 5 meaningful games. 4 in December and the 1 yesterday in the new year 2023 on January 1st, and they lay a dud. I mean, embarrassing, pathetic performance for the New York Jets. And to me, again, we'll get to some of the performers. We'll get to, Mike White. We'll get to the offense and the defense. Defense was pathetic. You knew the game was over 3 plays in. And you know what? Again, that's on Saleh. You could say all the different things about, at the end of the day, players got to go out there and perform. This is now 3 weeks in a row that Robert Saleh has not had his guys ready to play. I mean, they lose in a terrible fashion on a 51-yard touchdown by the Lions tight end, who the week prior didn't even have a catch. They lose that game, and then they embarrass themselves on primetime on Thursday Night Football. You get a second opportunity. You go into Seattle yesterday, a winnable game. 3 plays in, Seattle's up 7-0. That's on Robert Saleh. You got to have your guys ready to play. He has not had them ready to play. And 2 of these losses now have come at home. You're more talented than Jacksonville, more talented than Detroit. You're more talented than Seattle. Seattle also had a couple key players yesterday on defense that missed the game, and there was a guy too that got hurt. Was a big piece of their defense, a leader on that defense. He got hurt in yesterday's game. A lot of this is on coaching. A lot of it is. You can blame the quarterback. You could say all these different things, but when you lose 5 straight games, and the way they've lost them. 9 points scored in these last 2 games combined. 8 massive quarters of football, and you score 9 points. The Jets haven't scored a touchdown since 2 weeks ago yesterday. Or a week ago yesterday was the last time they scored, because obviously they had a short week or whatever it was. 2 weeks. No, 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks since they scored a touchdown. And next week, if they don't score, they'll end the year 3 straight games without scoring a touchdown, which they probably won't score next week. Or, maybe they will. The Jets, they'll do what they always do. They'll go out there. They'll win, 31-21. Mike White will play great. We'll go into the offseason, say, that last game, that's a good building block for the rest of the offseason and stuff. And then they'll come out on the same thing every year. It's the same thing. It's the same old Jets. We've seen this before. It's happening again. I mean, this season is an epic disaster. It's a disaster. I don't want to hear either, you went into the year, we all said 7-8 wins, play meaningful games. When you're 6-3, expectations change. You were 6-3, you were 5-2, you were 7-4. Many times this year, the Jets above, 3 games above 500, winnable games. And the fall to 7-9 the way they have is pathetic on so many levels, and it's a reflection on the coaching. And again, now you seriously have concerns about Saleh, and does this locker room believe in him? You were 6-3, 8 games left. Play 500 football, you're in the postseason. You lose like this, and you're losing games like this. The guys don't even they're not playing with any energy. There's no energy, there's no drive, there's nothing. This team is flat right now. I mean, flat. You're playing meaningful football games, and they're playing flat. I mean, look at the Giants yesterday. Clinching the playoffs, they score 30-plus points for the first time in forever. You want to know why? Well-coached football team. Look at the Lions. Not much talent. They next week control their own destiny. If they beat Green Bay and they need Seattle to lose, they're in. Well-coached football team. The New York Jets seriously have concerns about Saleh after yesterday. And I'll tell you what, I've said this all season. I like certain things about Saleh. There's certain things I don't like. Okay? But after watching yesterday's debacle, you could strongly, if I'm Woody Johnson, which he won't do it because Woody's a pathetic owner and he stinks. So he won't. But if I'm Woody Johnson, I would call up Sean Payton. I would. Sean Payton would bring instant accountability. It'd be similar to a Parcells hiring, Super Bowl winning coach. I would call up Sean Payton. But okay. Or you got two options. You either call up Sean Payton and bring him in. I would not fire Saleh and bring in a rookie head coach. I wouldn't do that. The only way I'm firing Saleh, which I'm not against firing Saleh, but only if it means you're bringing in Sean Payton. Because if you're bringing in another rookie coach, it's almost like a whole restart again. Then you're going to have to go through next year is going to be a rebuilding year. He's got to lay the foundation. And then next year, then you'll be like, okay, now you got to start competing. You don't want to do that. The only way I'm firing Saleh is if you can bring in Sean Payton. Or some other coach comes out of the woodwork and some other, winning coach comes out of it, right? That could be an option. Or the bottom line is this. After this year's collapse, the bottom line is you next season, Woody Johnson's got to pull Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh into a room. And he's got to tell them, look, playoff mandate next year. I don't care how the season plays out. I don't care if you start the year 2-7 and you run the table and you get to 9-8 or you win your final couple games and you get to 9-8 or whatever, or however the season plays out. If the Jets are not playing a wild card or a playoff game next year, you two are fired. That's what I would do. Those are your two options you have. You either fire Saleh, you bring in Sean Payton, or you say, look, to Douglas and Saleh, this is it. This is your final year here. If you don't make the playoffs, well, obviously, if you make the playoffs, then you're back. But if you don't make the playoffs, you're not coming back. I don't care how the season plays out. I don't care about injuries. If you don't make the playoffs, it's over. So that's another option. And to be honest with you, after watching yesterday too, to really get into the game, Mike White played like garbage. He did not play well. Okay, he didn't play well. That's the bottom line. Mike LaFleur's got to be fired. Somebody's got to be fired. Somebody has to be fired. I mean, somebody. I'm not one of those fans too to, you lose one game and you fire everybody. But this is not losing one game. This is not like, week one. This is 5 straight losses, and most likely you're probably going to lose another game next week because let's be honest here, the players are going to mail it in. They're not going to care. Game means nothing. They're not going to go out there and give it their all because the game means nothing. Why? You got a guy like a Quinnen Williams, all these big time players. Why go out there risk an injury going into a contract here, right? They're not going to go out there. The next week means nothing to them. Sure, you can knock New England. Sure, you can knock Miami out of the playoffs, but that's not happening. So even if they win next week, it doesn't matter. So this is 5 straight losses. Somebody's got to be fired. LaFleur, I think, could definitely be an option. If you don't get rid of Saleh, LaFleur's got to be fired. He's got to be. I've been against LaFleur all year long. I've said it all year long. He's not a good offensive coordinator. He's overwhelmed. Him and Calabrese to bring in a rookie's quarterbacks coach and a rookie offensive coordinator just doesn't make sense. There was a play yesterday, 3rd down and 4. 3rd down and 4, and they run it with Ty Johnson. Like, what is that play call? Where in the world are you getting that play call from? It's a 3rd down and 4, and you're running with Ty Johnson? Are you kidding me? That's the play call? And then you don't convert on 4th down, which was awful. And then, Mike White again didn't play well. The run game didn't get going either. They couldn't run the ball. There was a couple bursts here and there, but they couldn't run the ball much. 17 carries for 75 yards is not going to cut it. When the Seahawks, that's another thing too. This run defense is awful. 198 rushing yards they allowed yesterday. This run defense is embarrassing. And you start to have concerns. Was this defense as good as we thought they were, or are they a little overrated? This defense seems to be a little overrated. after watching yesterday's debacle, after watching the past, let's be honest, 5 weeks of debacle, right? The last time the Jets won was a couple days after Thanksgiving. Let that sink in. The last time the Jets won was 3 days after Thanksgiving? It is January 2nd, 2023. The Jets haven't won a game since November. And they didn't win it all in December. And most likely, they won't win it all. They got one more game left. And if they win in January, it doesn't mean anything. So all it does is, take you out of the, you don't win, you don't have a double-digit loss season. So, again, the defense was, I thought the secondary was okay. Sauce played well. I mean, he had, 4 passes defended. He held DK Metcalf to 3 yards. Sauce was excellent yesterday. I think he's the defensive rookie of the year. And that's another reason, too. If this Jet team had and I understand the quarterback was an issue this year. I get that. But if this Jet team had, zero talent, you could say, okay, it's coaching. Or it's on its players. But this Jet team has 3 of some of the best rookies. Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, and obviously Breece Hall prior to injury. I mean, the Jets, there's a good chance the Jets have the offense and defensive rookie of the year on their roster. And the fact that and also add on to that, you have a guy that's in the conversation for defensive player of the year in Quinnen Williams. You also have 4 Pro Bowlers, right? Which is the most you've had in a very long time. You also have DJ Reed, who's a Pro Bowl snub. Good chance he's an all-pro. You have talent all over this team. And to fall apart, that's coaching. That's coaching. I'm sorry. That's on coaching. So, especially when you look at these other teams and you say the Jets are more talented. The Jets wasted this year. They did. They wasted a talented team. This was a talented football team. And we've talked about it all year long. The Jets defense was so dominant early in the season. So dominant. To now, we've all been saying, you got to take advantage. You never know what's going to happen with the defense. And now it's too little too late because the defense is now falling apart and you still don't have answers on offense. So, and again, another concern. Look, this is another Jets offseason where you're going to go into the offseason with more questions than answers. And again, it's revolving around the 2 positions that we haven't gotten right for years. Head coach, coaching staff as a whole. Because a lot of it's on, LaFleur and the offensive staff. Believe me, it is. And I agree with that. And quarterback. And I think we all expected that. I mean, once Zach Wilson got benched, even if Mike White played well, we all, going into the offseason, Mike White's a free agent. So you still have to figure something out, with the quarterback spot. The quarterback's a question. You got to bring in a veteran next year. I mean, even if Mike White goes out there next week and plays well, you want to bring him back as a backup, go ahead. Mike White's not the starter next year. Okay, he's not. And there's a good chance this quarterback's not on the roster. Because I'll tell you what, Zach Wilson ain't starting next year. Mike White's probably not starting either. Go out and get a Derek Carr, Jimmy G. Obviously, guys like Rodgers and Lamar Jackson are far, far fetched. Those are kind of pipe dreams. Brady's not coming here. I'm not even going to talk about Tom Brady. He's not coming here. Okay. I know there's some people out there say go out and get. Brady is not coming here. There's a better chance of the Jets making the playoffs this year and they're eliminated than Tom Brady coming to the Jets. Let's just be honest here. He's not coming here. But more realistic options. Derek Carr and Jimmy G are obviously the 2 most realistic options. You want to go out and maybe get a Minshew and have him and Mike White compete, go ahead. I don't know how I would feel about that. I mean, Minshew's a very good, I know he struggled a little bit yesterday. He's a good backup, but do you trust him to be a consistent starter? Lamar Jackson's a pipe dream, especially seeing the Ravens lose like they are without him. They need Lamar Jackson. Without him, the Ravens are not a good team. So they need him. They're going to give him the bag. And nor do I see the Jets, number one. The cap, you can always adjust it, obviously, but the Jets, I just don't think you're going to see Douglas. He's never really spent that type of money. I don't think you're going to see him go out and spend all that money on Lamar. Nor do I think Lamar is going to be available for very long. I think you're going to see the Ravens give him a massive, massive contract, especially after you see. It's probably going to be a historic contract because it seems like every contract these days is historic, which I have no problem with. I'm just saying. Especially when you see the Ravens struggle like they are. Derek Carr and Jimmy G are the 2 most realistic options. Jimmy G's the most realistic because he's a legitimate free agent. Some of these other guys you obviously got to trade for, or you give them a ton of money. But yeah, Terrible. So Jets obviously rushing again, 198 rushing yards by Seattle yesterday. Jets had 4 sacks on the offensive line's not good either. You got to figure that out. So yeah, pathetic performance. And I am not against firing Saleh. I'm really not. I'm actually for it at this point. But again, if you're gonna fire Saleh, bringing in Sean Payton, or 3 options. Again, you roll with the same staff and you say next year, winner in. Or win or go home. Like, you playoffs or you're done. Or you fire Saleh, bring in Payne. He obviously hires his own people. And who knows? Then Douglas's future gets interesting because how does Sean Payton want to do that? I think if Sean Payton's going to want to come in, he's going to want a whole lot of power. He's going to want a lot of say with drafting. He's going to want a lot of say, obviously, with the roster as a whole, free agency. He's going to want He's going to want a lot of power. That's just what he's going to want. Or you could, again, you keep Saleh, you fire a guy like LaFleur, you bring in Frank Wright, somebody like that. They need a little bit more veteran experience on this coaching staff. We don't have enough of it, and, it's just pathetic. It's just frustrating. So, yeah, Jets have one more game to finish out the season, and no playoffs this year for the New York Jets. And as of right now, as I transition into the Giants, is looking as if the Jets hired the wrong bald head coach, because Brian Daboll with the New York Giants is rolling. He is cruising, and what a hire by the New York Giants, as the Giants yesterday officially clinched the playoffs with a win over the Indianapolis Colts. So they are in, and not only are they in, they have clinched the 6th seed. So the Giants, no matter what happens next week, they are a 6th seed. The only thing left to be determined is who they're going to play. As of right now, as I mentioned earlier, if the playoffs were to start next week, the Giants right now would play against the Vikings. That can obviously change. The Niners are a possibility, depending on how things play out there. Niners and Vikings, it seems like, are the 2 most likely possibilities. I guess, yeah, those are the most likely. So right now it's the Vikings, which, again, not to get too far ahead, because the playoffs, again, are in 2 weeks, but the Giants can beat the Vikings. I mean, they almost did, and the Vikings got crushed yesterday. Vikings are not a non-beatable team by any means. They are a beatable football team. They definitely are. I mean, if it was never for Mike LaFleur and his questionable play calling in the red zone and Braxton Berrios dropping that pass in the end zone, Jets probably would have beat the Vikings too. And that's saying something considering how much this Jet team has collapsed the final couple weeks of the season here. So you would get the Vikings, and the Giants lost on an insane field goal by Greg Joseph. They lost 27-24. And again, that game too, the Giants shot themselves in the foot with Richie James had a drop pass. There was a couple mistakes here and there, which really hurt them. So the Giants definitely could beat the Vikings. This Giant team right now, with the way they're coached, they are one of the best, most well-coached football teams in all the NFL. And no matter what type of talent you have on the roster, if you're a well-coached football team, you might be able to make some noise in the playoffs. So Giants get the job done yesterday, 38-10, improved to 9-6-1 on the season. Colts are a train wreck. They are an absolute train wreck. They fall to 4-11-1 on the year. Watching that game yesterday, it started out a little, a little rusty for the Giants. Colts obviously had, put up 3 points in the first quarter. That first drive for the Giants, you could definitely tell there were little jitters, a little nervousness, maybe, meaningful game, playoffs, when you're in. A little nervousness you could tell early on, but the Giants in that second quarter poured it on. 24 points in the second quarter. You knew the game was done by halftime. They kept going in the second half, scoring 14 more, 2 more touchdowns, putting up 38 points. First time they've done that in a very long time. And guess what? All 4 touchdowns yesterday came from Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones threw a touchdown, obviously, to Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns as well to continue to pour it on. Daniel Jones has had a phenomenal year. He is the answer. He is the guy for the New York Giants. The Giants got their future quarterback. They really do. And it's crazy to think that, the first couple years of Daniel Jones where it was bad, I crushed Daniel Jones on this show a ton. I was not a Daniel Jones believer. I went into this year not believing in Daniel Jones. I've said it. But I got to fill out one of those Daniel Jones apology forms because I did not see this coming. I just didn't. He had a lot of bad habits, had a lot of, just mistakes. Turnovers were a massive issue with him. He is playing turnover-free football. He is playing clean football. He's playing complimentary football. He is playing like a legit franchise quarterback. in the NFL. That's a credit to the coaching staff. It's also a credit for Daniel Jones. He's learning another system, but he has made the adjustments that he needs to make. He realized that this was a massive season for him going into his fourth year. Obviously, quarterbacks' fourth years are always so huge, with the fifth-year option, right around the corner. Usually that's when you give him the contract extensions, all that stuff. Daniel Jones is on his way to getting a nice payday from the New York Giants. He's not going to get a massive, massive deal, obviously, but he's on his way to getting a nice, long-term deal with the New York Giants. And you hear the reports yesterday that Saquon Barkley will also probably join him, as Saquon's also had a very good year this season. He had 58 rushing yards yesterday. They didn't need Saquon to dominate yesterday. I mean, the passing game obviously got going. And then late in the game, too, they benched some of their starters. Tyrod Taylor came in. Matt Breida got a couple runs. Gary Brightwell as well. Got a couple opportunities too, so they didn't need to. And I think that's good for the Giants, that Saquon Barkley, you want to lessen the workload a little bit, especially next week. It will be interesting to see how the Giants approach next week. Brian Dable said yesterday, right, when they were talking about benching the starters next week, he was like, I'm going to go home, smoke a cigar, and hang out with my family. That was the last thing on his mind. They clinched the playoff spot, enjoy this win, focus on next week. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach that. But the Giants, again, why yesterday was so important is now you have that you can rest your starters next week, and you can get Barkley and get a lot of these guys fresh going into the postseason, which is a huge, huge, huge deal. Huge deal. I'll tell you what, this Giant team, they can make a little bit of noise. I mean, I would not be surprised if they win a playoffs, if they win the wild card game. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, if it's against Minnesota, I would definitely like the Giants in that. If it's the Niners, you don't feel as good, but after watching the Niners defense yesterday against Jared Stidham, I mean, maybe you like your chance a little bit more. Again, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, but if you're a Giants fan today, you got to be thrilled. And back to Daniel Jones. Okay, Daniel Jones is doing this. Again, I talked about this last week. Daniel Jones is doing this. He is got a career year going. He's got his best season by far of his career. All of these different things. He's doing this with zero talent. The leading receiver yesterday for the New York Giants, Richie James. Richie James, who is not well liked among many Giants fans, although yesterday, 76 yards and a touchdown's a pretty good day, and he had 7 catches on 7 targets. Had no drop passes, everything that went his way, he caught it. He did his job yesterday. He had that backflip in the end zone, all these different things. He had a good day yesterday, but he's had a lot of bad moments this year. The Giants' number one receivers have really been Darius Slayton, who yesterday only had 2 catches. He also had a fumble. And Isaiah Hodgins. And Isaiah Hodgins, by the way, has been very good. The Giants may have found something in him. He's young. Obviously comes over from Buffalo, knows the system. He's only 24 years old. I like Isaiah Hodgins. He's a good young receiver, 6'3", physical. He's a good, solid receiver. And him and Daniel Jones have had a really solid they've built some good chemistry together. I could definitely see him, being a part of the future. But the Daniel Jones is doing this without anybody around him. Anybody. I mean, you look at all these other quarterbacks around the league. Devontae Adams. This guy's got this guy. This guy's got, Justin Jefferson and all Stephon Diggs. All of these great receivers that these quarterbacks around the NFL. And I'm not taking anything away from those quarterbacks. That's just more of a credit to Daniel Jones for what he's doing. The number one receiver for the Giants when they signed him was supposed to be Kenny Golladay. He's not even seeing the field anymore. He's a non-factor. So it's just a phenomenal job by Dable to take this team, what Gettleman did to this team in terms of the salary cap and the overall talent on the roster, to take this team and get them to 9 wins to get them to the postseason, get 9 wins, and an opportunity next week to, knock the Phillies out of the 1 seed in the NFC. Also, knock them out of the 1 seed in the NFC East. You have an opportunity to beat them. You also have an opportunity to get to 10 wins on the year. Now, it doesn't matter, obviously, if you get to 10 wins or if you stay at 9, but 10 wins would be pretty nice. To end the year like they have, 10 wins would be phenomenal. So, Daniel Jones, also a credit to this defense. Kayvon Thibodeau has been phenomenal the past couple weeks. He is a guy, he's one of those guys that you don't want the season to end. And obviously, you're going to the postseason, so who knows what happens. The Giants could be playing football for a good amount of weeks here, for the next couple of weeks. We'll see obviously how it all plays out in the postseason. But Kayvon Thibodeau is one of the guys where you don't want the season to end just because of the way he's playing. Like, he is so good right now. 5 tackles yesterday, 2 tackles for loss, had a sack, had a pass breakup, almost had an interception. Obviously a QB hit thrown in there. Snow Angels next to the injured Nick Foles. I mean, he brings a swagger. He brings a ton of energy. And he is a guy, ever since that Washington game on Sunday night, he has just unlocked. He really has. He's been unlocked. And from the start of the year where he was okay, he's making progress, but the past couple weeks, I mean, he has been phenomenal the past couple weeks. 3 sacks the last 4 weeks. 4 sacks on the year, 3 of them have come in the past 4 weeks. Obviously, he had a sack in Washington's game, sack in both the Washington games, and also, obviously, the game against the Colts yesterday was probably one of his best. That Washington Sunday night game and yesterday's game were, probably his 2 best games of his NFL career so far, his young NFL career. But he's a guy that's getting hot at the right time, and if he can keep this up going to the postseason, that is a scary, scary pass rusher for opposing quarterbacks. I don't care how mobile you are or how good you are. He is a legit threat up front coming off the edge. He's a guy that it's just like he is cruising right now. He is playing at a high level. A lot of things to like from Kayvon Thibodeau. And the rest of this Giants defense as well. They also got a Xavier McKinney back yesterday. Obviously, after the quad accident or the ATV accident in Cabo during the bye week, he was back yesterday. He's getting back at the right time. Adoree Jackson was out again yesterday, but he's a guy, too, that you probably look to get back either this week or into the postseason. Giants are getting healthier, which is a good sign, too. So just a lot of things to like. A credit to Dable, credit to Joe Shane. They've a year ago, this time last year, you were talking about the Giants falling to 4-13 on the year. And to add on to that, they had the QB sneak backed up inside their own, 10-yard line with Joe Judge. And now, what a difference a year makes. A year later, Giants are celebrating clinching a playoff spot. So, phenomenal job by Dable. Definitely, without a doubt, he's Coach of the Year. Without a doubt, he is Coach of the Year. I know some people think it's Nick Sirianni, but let's be honest here. Look at what Nick Sirianni is working with. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, all that talent. Not taking anything away from him. But again, credit to Dable. He is doing this with 0 talent. He is doing this with a roster that is just... Dable and Daniel Jones deserve a ton of credit for what they've done this year, especially on the offensive side of the football. So congrats to the Giants. Good for Dable. Good for Giants fans. And they punched their ticket to the Giants, and now they get to sit back next week and wait to see who they will play. And, next week will be a sit back, relax. If they win, that's great. If they lose, doesn't matter. You get ready for the postseason and see if they can make a run. So the G-Men get to the postseason while gangrene with the New York Jets, they fall flat. So unfortunate for the Jets, but good for the Giants as playoff football returns to New York football. All right, so we'll get to some of the other games here over the weekend in the NFL. You had the Niners over the Raiders yesterday, which was a phenomenal game. Credit to Jarrett Stidham. He played well. He obviously had 3 touchdowns. He did have the 2 picks, but Devontae Adams had a huge day. Brock Purdy continues to do Brock Purdy things. 284 yards, 2 touchdowns. McCaffrey had a massive day. So the Niners get the win there, but a good fought. I was shocked the Raiders fought like they did. I was really shocked. Steelers as well over the Ravens. Big touchdown, Kenny Pickett late in the game. He got through a touchdown, obviously, to Najee Harris for the win. And the Steelers next week are in a situation where they're currently the 8 seed. They're the 9 seed right now. So they're looking to get that final wild card spot. So as of right now, the Steelers next week need to win their game, which they will be going up against. This Steelers team reminds me a little bit of last year's team, where it was like late in the year, it didn't seem like they were going to get in. And in the final couple weeks, some magic happened. Like last year, I think there was a tie or something that happened that got them in. But they get the Browns next weekend, which is definitely a winnable game. And you get the Steelers. Steelers get the Browns. So the Steelers need next week. They will need the Jets to beat the Dolphins, and they need the Patriots to lose. They need the Bills to beat the Patriots. If the Bills beat the Patriots and the Jets beat the Dolphins, Dolphins and Patriots will both be 8-9. And if the Steelers beat the Browns, they will be 9-8. So, what a job by Mike Tomlin. What a job. He is another guy, too. He's one of the best coaches in the NFL. The job that he's done throughout his career with the Steelers, but especially this season. Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, you're bouncing between two quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett being a rookie, so you got to expect some growing pains there. To get to the final week of the season where they are playing meaningful games is just a credit to Tomlin, and also credit to Kenny Pickett. He's played a lot of turnover-free football the last couple weeks. He's played a lot smarter. He was very reckless earlier in the year. He's playing a lot smarter and making some improvements. So this Steelers team with TJ Watt and this defense, does a lot of really good things. And if the offense can find a way to just put some points up, Steelers are in a lot of these games. So good job there by the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. Packers continue to cruise. What a day by Jair Alexander shutting down Justin Jefferson. He had one catch for 15 yards. Packers win and in scenario next week. If they beat the Lions, they are in. If they lose to the Lions, they are done. The NFC also interesting scenario there. So for the NFC, it's a 3-team race. Same thing in the AFC 3-team race. If the Seahawks win next week and the Packers win, if the Packers win out, they're in because Washington lost. The Seahawks, if they beat the Rams, they need the Lions over the Packers. If the Seahawks win, they're in. If the Seahawks lose, then the winner of the Packers-Lions game is in the playoffs. If the Seahawks win and the Lions win, I believe then the Seahawks are in. If the Seahawks win and the Packers lose, they're in. The Lions need to beat the Packers and they need the Rams to beat the Seahawks. So your chances there aren't as great. If the Packers win, they're in. It's the Packers, it's a win and in. Seahawks and Lions need to win their games, and they also need some help from each other. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out. Chargers over the Rams. What a game for the Buccaneers and Tom Brady. Mike Evans with a massive, massive game. Sam Darnold played very well. 341 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did his job. He played well. They couldn't get the run game going much. DJ Moore had a huge day. But more to the, 432 yards from Brady, 3 touchdowns. And Mike Evans yesterday, 10 catches, 207 yards, 3 touchdowns. Godwin, too, don't let him get lost in the mix. He had 120 yards on 9 catches. Yesterday was a vintage playoffs on the line, division on the line, Tom Brady stepping up, big game performance from Tom Brady. That's what you needed yesterday out of Brady. And again, as much as I crushed the Bucs and as much as the media crushes the Bucs, that's why the Bucs are a threat in the NFC, because you never know what you have Tom Brady, and he could have days like that. And I know the Panthers aren't great. I know they were without J.C. Horn. I understand all that stuff. But when you have Tom Brady on your team, you're automatically in contention. You automatically have a chance to win because Tom Brady can have one of those days really whenever he wants. It just, he can have one of those vintage days, and that's what he did yesterday. Patriots over the Dolphins. Dolphins have a quarterback problem. Teddy Bridgewater, hand injury, finger injury. They had to bring in their third-string quarterback, Skylar Thompson, who didn't do much either. So Miami now needs to beat the Jets next week, and if they lose and the Patriots win, Dolphins are in. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Who knows who the Jets are playing next week, whether it's Teddy Bridgewater or Skylar Thompson. That's why it really hurts, or Tua. That's why it really hurts, though, that the Jets lost yesterday, because if the Jets would have won yesterday, there's a really good chance that they beat Miami next week if it's Skylar Thompson or Bridgewater playing, because Teddy didn't play very well, even when he was out there. Chiefs over the Broncos. Broncos played pretty well. They played well without, Nathaniel Hackett. They were in this game. But at the end of the day, still get the loss. So they'll close out the year against Chargers next week. Falcons over the Cardinals in the battle of the backups. Desmond Ridder versus David Blough. Falcons got the win there. Lions over the Bears, 41-10. Bears now lose 9 straight. Jaguars, big win over the Texans. Obviously, that's what the Jaguars needed to do. And now they go into a situation against the Titans where win and you're in. If the Titans win, they are in. If the Jaguars win, they win the AFC South. So that will be a fun matchup to watch next week between the Jaguars and the Titans. Obviously, Browns over the Commanders, Saints over the Eagles. Commanders are a mess. They bench Heineke. I said it all week long. It was a bad decision. Sure enough, Wentz goes out there, throws 3 interceptions. Browns win 24-10. I don't know why in the world they benched Heineke. And then you hear in Ron Rivera's press conference, he did not even know they could be eliminated. So really just a just a disaster in Washington. I mean, that's just a mess. I mean, you bench your quarterback that's gotten you to playoff contention. You bench the guy that the locker room believes in for a guy that, let's just tell like it is, Wentz is not what he used to be. And I've said that all year long. A lot of people want to see Wentz do so well. Like, people just want to see Wentz succeed for some reason. I don't know why, but they want him to see him succeed so much. He hasn't been the same quarterback since the injury in Philly. Let's just be honest. And that's it. That's the bottom line. He's not a good quarterback. He's an okay backup. He's not a starter in this league. He can back up, but not a starter. It's the bottom line. And Washington, to bench Taylor Heineke like that, I understand. It's not like he's Patrick Mahomes, but he was getting the job done. Just to bench him just makes zero sense to me. And look, yesterday, I mean, that's what happens when you bench your best quarterback. You know, that's what happens. So Washington gets eliminated from the postseason. All right, so as for tonight's game, you got Bengals-Bills. Bills 12-3, Bengals 11-4. Bills a small 1.5 point favorite. Over under set at 49.5. 8:30 p.m. Eastern, ESPN tonight. I'm pumped up for this game. I'm looking forward to seeing how this game plays out. This is gonna be a fun game. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen in Cincinnati. Should be a good game. As much as, you know, the Bills obviously have the better record, they control their own destiny. If they win this game and they win next week, no matter what happens with Kansas City and Cincinnati, they are in as the 1 seed in the playoffs in the AFC. I'm going to take the Bengals here. I've said this all year long. When I look at the AFC, and I think the Bills are a very good team, don't get me wrong. Prove me wrong tonight, though, but when I look at the AFC, Bengals, Chiefs, and then I think it's the Bills as the third best team. I do. I am not fully scared of the Bills. I am not fully bought in to the Bills in terms of they've won a lot of these games. They've gotten the job done. But there's been a lot of like iffy play these past couple weeks. So I'm not fully bought in on Buffalo. I think they're a very good team. Definitely they can make a run, but I like Cincinnati a little bit more. And I think Joe Burrow, he's having a heck of a year. Definitely in the MVP conversation. Bengals at home. If Buffalo is at home, I would probably say the Bills. Bengals at home, a little bit of an advantage. Joe Burrow, I just like the Bengals here on primetime. This is a very good game. 61% of people betting the money line. They're taking the Bills. So it's interesting on Bleacher Report here. But I'm gonna take the Bengals at home here. Give me the Bengals at home. Joe Burrow gets the win, gets his 12th win of the year, and looks like the Bills after this game, things get a little bit more interesting in terms of the race for the number 1 seed in the AFC. So a massive game tonight. I'm taking the Bengals, and I'm going to take the Bengals. I think it's a close game. 31. Give me 31-28. Give me a shootout. Give me game-winning field goal. Bengals win. Bengals plus 1.5. Over on the over-under 49.5. Bengals win at home. And that is my game pick for Monday Night Football. To close out what it was a good weekend of the NFL, outside of the Jets, obviously. Good weekend for the NFL. Ends tonight with a very good game tonight. And also today, got a lot of good college football games on. And you had 2 very good games on college football playoff. TCU over Michigan. TCU now advances 51-45. They now are in. And Georgia over Ohio State. Stetson Bennett is a winner. I mean, he is just a warrior to go out and lead comebacks like that. I mean, he is a phenomenal player. Georgia, TCU tonight, or next week, next Monday, I should say. And winner's the college football champion. So looking forward to that game there. We got a couple good games on today. Illinois, Mississippi State, LSU, Purdue in the Citrus Bowl. You got USC, Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. Penn State, Utah in the Rose Bowl. So Rose Bowl today, looking forward to watching that. So that will wrap up the college football bowl season. And then next Monday, January 9th, 8 p.m. Eastern, ESPN, TCU, Georgia, to win it all for the championship. Also on tonight, you got a couple things going on today as well in the NBA and the NHL. Also, college basketball tonight. You got a couple good games on. Rutgers visits number 1 Purdue, so that's a big game in the Big Ten. But as for the NBA tonight, you got the Knicks Suns matinee game, 3 Eastern at the Garden today. So they'll have an afternoon game. Cavs, Bulls, Lakers, Hornets, Pelicans, Sixers, Raptors, Pacers, Mavericks, Rockets, Nuggets, Timberwolves, Hawks, Warriors, Pistons, Trailblazers, and the Heat, Clippers. So a good amount of games on there tonight in the NBA. You also got Nets, Spurs. Nets, 12.5-point favorites. Spurs. Here, they're at home, Barclays Center, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on. Yes, the Nets look to win their 12th straight game. Currently, 11-game win streak. They look to win their 12th straight, and they look to start out 2023 with a win tonight against a Spurs team in which they should win. Spurs are not good. They're 12-24. They are 14th in the Western Conference. You like your chances here tonight with the Nets, especially if they can continue to roll. And today in the NHL, you got the Knights and the Avalanche and the Flyers and the Ducks, and you also got Fenway Park today, Winter Classic, 2 p.m. Eastern, TNT. Definitely looking forward to watching that. Over-under for this game is set at 6. Bruins 28-4-4, hosting the Penguins at 19-11-6. Fenway Park Winter Classic. I always love the Winter Classic. So we'll definitely be watching that today. Bruins, Penguins, Fenway Park. Wish it was the Rangers tonight. I thought for a chance it'd be the Rain. Thought there was a chance the Rangers would play against the Bruins. I was hoping for that little New York-Boston rivalry at Fenway Park. We've seen that before, obviously with the Yankees and the Red Sox, but Bruins, Penguins, 2 good teams. Looking forward to watching that today. And as for fantasy football, it was an okay week for me. So looks like I'm gonna win in 2 leagues, and I'm gonna lose in 2 weeks. So that's why I said it was okay. 500 looks like I'll go 2-2 on the week. So a little unfortunate there. Couple big players this weekend. Darren Waller surprisingly had a good day. I should have played him in one of my leagues. I benched him and played Goddard, which was not smart. I did not think Jared Stidham was going to do what he did, but he played well. Tonight I got Tyler Bass. So I need Tyler Bass tonight. I have a huge day, and my opponent has Gabe Davis, so most likely Gabe Davis will probably have a big day. Some other guys, again, Darren Waller, a big day. If you had Mike Evans this weekend, you most likely won. If you had Mike Evans or Devontae Adams, you probably won. I will tell you that. I had Devontae Adams in one of my leagues. Mike Evans this week had 48 points. 48 points. I also had Devontae Adams. He had 39 points. So if you had Devontae Adams and Mike Evans, which is very possible to have both of them on your roster, you most likely are winning right now, and especially if you're in the Fantasy Football Championship. Couple of players tonight, again, the 2 quarterbacks. I know, some people have Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. I like Josh Allen a lot. I'd personally play Burrow tonight. At home, he's playing at such a high level. I would personally take Joe Burrow tonight, but that's just me. I know a lot of people have, some people have both of them. If you were able to get both of them, definitely look to play those guys. Obviously, Jamar Chase is a big play. Singletary tonight, if you want to flex, I don't hate it. I would probably take a guy like a Gabe Davis if you have him, on your bench and you could put him in the flex spot. I'd probably take Gabe Davis. Singletary is just a little too inconsistent. But obviously you got your obvious plays tonight with guys like, the 2 quarterbacks, Mixon, T. Higgins, Diggs, Gabe Davis, all those guys. Hayden Hurst or Dawson Knox, 2 good tight ends tonight. I wouldn't play either defense. If you have either defense, I wouldn't play. Although it's too late now. But I would probably take Dawson Knox or Hayden Hurst. Probably take Knox, personally, but I would take Burrow over, because I just think Burrow's going to have a bigger game. But I think, you usually, especially, Hayden Hurst, he's a little more inconsistent. Bills like to use the tight ends a little bit more. So I'd probably play Hurst tonight. But I would play the quarterbacks, and obviously you have your obvious receivers. Guys like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, all those guys are obviously all in play for tonight, and should be a good game. As I mentioned, my prediction, 31-28, so I'm expecting a blowout. Another guy to put into consideration as well, just checking to see how he's 70.8% rostered in leagues. Tyler Boyd's another guy, too, to look out for as an option. He could be a flex piece there too. I'd probably play Boyd, Gabe Davis, Singletary. All those guys are all possible flex options. A lot of talent in tonight's game for sure. So looking forward to it. So that will do it for the podcast here today. That will wrap up the Monday show. As I mentioned, or I haven't mentioned yet today, but as I continue to mention every week, I am recording my Jets mailbag episode on Wednesday. So you can drop your Jets questions in the comments down below. I will answer them on Wednesday on my Jets podcast, In the Trench with Gang Green. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions about the coach and a lot of questions about the quarterback, and I'll answer all those because that's going to be the talk for the New York Jets for the next couple months, especially the quarterback. The coach, if they don't fire him, they don't fire him. So, that might be the talk after next week game. It might be the talk on Monday to see if if they get rid of him. But the quarterback will be a talk really until free agency and the trades, really heat up after the season. So it's that time of year again. It's frustrating. And out of all this, too, the Jets can still get a top 10 pick. So a couple things need to happen next week for them to get a top 10 pick, which is crazy. If you would have told me when they were 6-3 at the bye week that the Jets were going to get a top 10 pick, I would have thought you were crazy. It's that time of year again. I guess glass half full. We looked at the playoff picture for 17 weeks. And we only looked at the draft for this final week. So I was hoping that we wouldn't look at the draft at all this year, but looks like we're looking at tankathon again. Right now, I think the Jets have the 13th overall pick. They're not going to take a quarterback, obviously. The only way you take a quarterback, I think, is if they maybe bring a guy in later rounds and maybe have him as your project, develop him. Who knows what would happen? Maybe take a guy in like the third or fourth round, get him, develop him, and maybe you find something, or just have him as depth. And kind of have just him as your project, and if down the road, if however you see it, however the quarterback spot plays out, if you ever need him or whatever, but it'll be an interesting draft. I mean, you got to address safeties. Safeties stink. Whitehead is terrible in coverage. Coaching, quarterback, the two biggest questions, and we've been down this road before. There was parts of the season where you didn't think we'd be talking about this, but here we are again, January 2nd, and we're talking about the coach and we're talking about the quarterback. So, same old Jets. It is what it is. So, that will do it. Scheduling this week, I will be back to my regular Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Last week, obviously, I was able to do podcasts every day, but this week, it will be back to Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So, stay tuned. A lot more content coming, as always. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.